Hello there, my name is James Snyder. I'm a teacher at Anderson Valley High School in Northern California. And this video, I'm going to show how I used Desmos just recently in a lesson about summations. The class is a summer school class, and these are my up-and-coming AP Calculus students for next year. And we are doing a summer course to work on some very key pre-calculus concepts that will be necessary for them in AP Calculus. I am used to using Desmos, and I'm used to using the Desmos calculator. I use it a lot. The students are very familiar with it. I'm a bit newer to using the classroom activities, and so this is maybe only the second or third classroom activity I've designed, and this was a bit of an experiment on my part in using the classroom activity in a new way. So the problem that we started out with was the penny pyramid problem, which many people are familiar with, especially if you've been to Dan Meyer's website, where I got a link to the video. So the students watched the video on the penny pyramid. Then they came up with questions. And of course, the big unifying question usually is, how many pennies are there in this pyramid? So we started talking about some basic information, like how many stacks were on the first layer, and they came up with procedures and methods as to how they thought they would solve that problem. How many pennies are in this pyramid? They worked in small groups, and this is a small class, so there was only 3 groups, but they each put together a display of how they thought the problem would best be solved. So this is all leading up to the Desmos activity, but I purposely did not just give them the activity first and let them work on it, because I wanted to give them a context. Once we'd had time to look at everybody's proposals, we then moved to the Desmos activity. So I started off the activity with a funny SpongeBob meme about adding lots of numbers, and we launched into a discussion about what kind of a tool would be helpful for this. I made them work in partners. So they switched up their groups. Each set of partners got one computer so that they had to collaborate together before they input their responses. So they really had to think about it. Now, these are students who are used to having class discussions. We do whole group discussions, small group discussions a lot in my classes. But this was different because they first had to talk to their partner, then input it into the Desmos classroom activity. Then they got to see all of the responses show up in real time, and then we would have a whole group discussion. So it was new to them, and it was also new to me. The students really liked to not only hear what each other had to say, but they liked reading what the other groups wrote down. And they finished up and anxiously waited to see what other groups had put, even though they were sitting there in the same room. I thought it was kind of an interesting phenomenon. But so we talked about all the different ways that this was working, and then we started working with actual sigma notation. We discussed the inputs and the outputs of sigma and what it does and what it means, and we started with some simple examples of like adding the numbers between 1 and 5, 1 to 10, and then once we'd had time to really have a broad discussion about this, we then moved to the actual Desmos calculator and began inputting sigma notation in and checking some of our answers from the previous problems. So this was a very engaging activity. It was a new way for me to use Desmos, and I'm really curious to expand upon this because it was, for me, like using a PowerPoint presentation. However, it was interactive, and the students really responded to it. They loved watching what came up on the screen that the others were writing, and like I said, I've used the Desmos calculator a lot, and in this particular case, we barely used the calculator itself. We only scratched the surface in this particular lesson of what the sigma notation feature in the calculator actually does. But it was a very successful lesson. I'm really looking forward to doing this more in the future, and I am hopefully really looking forward to working with the Desmos team on the Teacher Fellowship. So thank you very much.
So, ready to move on?